Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to this special shiur on Rosh Chodesh Adar that's in memory, the first yortzeit of Anne's father, my father-in-law, Paul Venze, Pesach ben David HaKohen Vechenka, Zichrono Livracha. This is his first yortzeit, and it occurs on during the week of Parshat Truma, which I think is significant in itself. Parshat Truma, which is the beginning of the parshiot of the Torah that deal with the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. There, Hashem invites everyone, Kol Ish Asher Yidvenu Libo, everyone whose heart generously prompts them to contribute can contribute. And just want to say that my father-in-law, Paul Venze, was a tremendously generous person, truly a nadiv lev. We and many people and many organizations around the world are grateful for his generosity. He also was a Kohen, and he took his kahuna very seriously, very spiritually as well, and it's something that he was proud of and deeply respected for. I deeply respected him for that. He also had other really fine virtues, and we thought to honor his memory on this first yortzeit with a shir on Megillat Esther. It's Rosh Chodesh Adar, Purim is coming, and we thought to focus on a principle that comes out of the Megillah, and also connects with one of my father-in-law's most charming and truly most meaningful virtues, one of his really great qualities. So I thought to pursue this. So just as a general background, just get us all up to speed on this. You know that Megillat Esther is it's a sacred text, but it's also an elegant literary work. It's a beautifully told story. It has some, what we would call classic dramatic literary devices. And one of these is what's called concrete foreshadowing. This is where a detail appears early on in a narrative that turns out to be important, very necessary to the narrative later on. This literary device is also known as Chekhov's gun, because the playwright Chekhov advised other playwrights that if a gun appears in Act 1, you should be sure to use it by Act 3. Famous quote. Well, in the Megillah, there's a very important concrete foreshadowing in a little incident that happens towards the beginning of the Megillah, just after Esther is chosen to be the queen, where Mordechai discovers a plot to assassinate the king. And Mordechai informs Esther, and Esther informs the king in Mordechai's name. Okay, and so what I'd like to do at this point, I just to share the screen, and we're going to go through some of these texts together. So here's the passage. Let me just set this up so everyone can see. Sorry. Here we go. So this is this little incident towards the beginning of the Megillah. In those days, when Mordechai was sitting in the king's gate, Bigtan and Teresh, two courtiers of the king, guards of the palace entrance, sought to attack King Achashverosh. The matter was made known to Mordechai. He told Esther the queen, and Esther told the king in the name of Mordechai. The matter was investigated, found out, and the two were hanged on the scaffold, and it was recorded in the book of Chronicles in the presence of the king. Okay, that's the incident. And this little foreshadowed detail becomes, quite pivotal at the exciting climax of the Megillah. Again, I'll just summarize this briefly so we'll all get up to speed in this. And towards the climax of the Megillah, Esther has to step up, and she does at the risk of her life, to ask the king to annul Haman's decree to annihilate the Jews. But Haman is powerful. The king is clueless, and so Esther has to do this in just the right way and just the right timing. So she arranges an intimate meal um, with the king, Haman, and herself, an intimate meal for everyone. And the king asks what it is that she wants at the meal, and she defers and she says, well, please come back to a meal that I'll make for you tomorrow, and then I'll tell you. Now you get the sense at this point that Esther is improvising here. She's waiting and she's hoping for something in this dangerous situation to shift a bit, but she doesn't yet know what. Okay, so the story in the night between the two meals, the king has insomnia. He asks for the court chronicles to be read. They come to the record of Mordecai saving the king, and Esther mentioning in Mordecai's name that Mordecai saved the king. And the king asks if Mordecai was ever rewarded for this. The courtiers say no. And at that moment, late at night, Haman is coming in. He wants to get permission to hang Mordecai, who was his arch enemy. But instead, the king orders Haman to be the one to parade Mordecai through the streets of Shushan as a hero. Okay? This was the shift that Esther was hoping for. So at the next then intimate meal with the king and with Haman, she makes a dramatic accusation against Haman. It's effective. The king is furious. Haman is taken away to be executed, and the Jews are saved. So back when Mordecai had informed Esther about the plot to kill the king, think about this. Had Esther merely told the king about the plot to assassinate him without mentioning Mordecai's name, things would not have succeeded as well, maybe even at all. Mordecai might have been hanged at this point, and then it would have been hard for Esther to convince the king that Haman's plot was nefarious, etc. So the fact that Esther's told over the information in the name of Mordecai turns out to be very significant, and this leads to an essential principle that's brought in the Gemara Megillah. Rabbi Elazar says, in the name of Rabbi Hanina, whoever says something in the name of the person who said it brings redemption to the world, as it says, and Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. So Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Hanina, which is actually, of course, here's Rabbi Elazar is doing exactly what he says you should do, right? Little medium and message. He's pointing out that the importance of this, that Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. Everything depended on that. He's really putting his finger on the pivotal moment in the Megillah, this principle. Whoever says something in the name of the person who said it originally brings redemption to the world. Okay, now, we can think about this. I mean, the way that he frames this sounds a little bit, can I say, exaggerated. It might be what we call an associative fallacy or a causation fallacy. I mean, yes, it's true that in this case, Esther, by mentioning that it was Mordecai's information, brought the salvation to the Jews of Persia. But that doesn't mean that every time somebody quotes something in the name of somebody else, they're going to bring redemption to the world. It's called an associative fallacy. But we have to give the rabbis credit here, more than credit. They're not naive. They're getting across something, a fundamental principle that really is here, and this is what we'd like to explore here in this shir. What is this principle really about? So, the place to start here is, actually, it appears in a number of sources. This notion that whoever says something in the name of the one who originally said it brings redemption to the world. One of the sources here is in Midrash Tanchuma, the Midbar, and here again we have the rabbis quoting each other properly. Rabbi Chizkiah and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, whoever does not say a statement in the name of the person who said it, Scripture says of him, do not steal from the poor. Okay, a verse from Mishlei. So here, Rabbi Chizkiah, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, Rabbi Yochanan are giving us the inverse of this. If you don't say a statement in the name of the person who said it, it's like theft. And this actually connects to a halachic issue in Torah in terms of whether theft applies to intellectual property. And here's at least one support that it does. The verse is that's given in proof is do not steal from the poor. In other words, if you say something and don't mention who it was that came up with the good idea, it's like a theft. And why from the poor? The commentators say that you see Rashi, Venze, that theft from the poor, a poor person doesn't have as much power in the community. So one might think it's easy to steal from them, and it's particularly dastardly to do that, to take advantage of their lack of political power. So too, if a person is giving over, a lecture, a talk, and doesn't quote the person who originally said an interesting or important idea, that person is not there often to defend themselves. So it's like stealing from the poor. And the Midrash then goes on, when a person hears something, he must say it in the name of the one who said it. In a matter of halacha, even 3 people back. And it gives, as a proof text, the rabbis have taught. Rabbi Nachum, the scribe, said, I received from Rabbi Miyasha, who received from my father, received from the great pairs, the Zuga of the rabbis, received from the elders of the halacha, the halacha from Moshe et Sinai. There are various versions of this statement, but the point that he's getting is not only do we say over the statement from the most recent person that we heard it from, but if we know how far back it goes, we should quote everybody all the way back. Okay. Now, this is said in the context of halacha, in other words, of Talmud Torah, of Torah study, and this we can see makes sense as an ethical principle. We should, if we've learned a good idea, we should mention the person that taught it to us or that said it. And this appears also as a principle of proper Torah study in Masechet Avot, in the 6th parak, in the Mishnah that is known as Kinyan Torah, which goes through the virtues that are prerequisite for really learning Torah in a deep and proper way. So the Mishnah here begins, Torah learning is greater than the priesthood, kahuna, greater than the kingship, because Torah learning requires 48 prerequisite virtues. You need that many more virtues to be able to learn Torah properly. That shows that it requires more effort, more engagement, and therefore is also more deeply respected. I'll give you just some examples here of the kind of virtues the Mishnah is talking about. To know one's place, to be happy with one's lot, to make a fence around one's words, in other words, to make sure that they won't be misinterpreted, not to aggrandize oneself, to be beloved, to love God, to love people, etc. So you get the point that it's these are ethical virtues that make you a more honest learner and teacher of Torah for intellectual and moral integrity. And it's 48 prerequisites. The 48th, the very last one, is to quote a statement in the name of the one who said it. Okay. Now, this is say a scholarly virtue, but the proof is interesting. For behold, you have learned that whoever quotes a statement in the name of the one who said it brings redemption to the world, as it says in Esther told the king in the name of Mordechai. So from a scholarly virtue to a much more general redemption, that's an interesting shift. And we'd like to know sort of what the connection is. How is it that a scholarly virtue becomes a world redemptive, or at least a national redemptive and a world redemptive sort of principle? One of the really insightful, and there are many, commentaries on Avot is by Rabbi Moshe ben Baruch al-Mosnino. He was from his family was from Gerish Sfarad, the Spanish expulsion, He was born in Thessaloniki and spent most of his life in Constantinople. Very, very respected, very distinguished Rav in the Sephardic community. And so he says, whoever says a statement in the name of the one who said it brings redemption. He says what this means is that one of the conditions for a person of integrity to maintain his learning is that he empower the public. Okay, you learn for yourself, but you're also learning to empower others. And he can do this by saying a statement in the name of one who said it, for this contributes to the integrity of those who hear. And his reward is very great because he who facilitates others to act is greater than the one who acts. And he's spreading that good quality, that virtue to others. And this leads to redemption of the intellect. Okay, an interesting sort of narrowing of the concept of geula here, of redemption, but in a certain sense expanding it too. In other words, this, and it's a really I think a really insightful understanding of this. His basic point is that knowledge, wisdom, learning in general is a collective enterprise. We don't do it alone. In this rather competitive world we live in, we often think, I have to be a great container of knowledge, a container of wisdom, and your self-esteem is based on your level of, particularly in certain cultures, your level of learning and your level of knowledge and how much you know. That's not the point. Anything that we have learned, we've learned really from others who have taught us. And so it's a long, millennial, generational process of gaining wisdom. And to acknowledge that and to quote as best you can where you've gotten your best ideas from is part of the process of honesty and integrity in learning. And this is a redemption of the intellect. Instead of this competitive sort of individualism, to realize that we're all in this together, learning together. And so it's a nice read of how it is that quoting your source by name is redemptive. Probably in my own research on this, the most in-depth analysis of this principle is in another commentary on Avot by the Maharal, Yehuda Loeb and Betzalel, great Maharal, also 16th century Kabbalist, philosopher, great Torah commentator. And here he really goes into great depth. And this is what I'd like to share together and try to work on together. So again, he's on this this Mishnah from Avot. The 48th virtue that you need in Torah learning is to quote in the name of those who said the name of the person who said the original statement. And now he goes into so what really is the underlying principle of this? Why is this so important? How does it lead to geula, to redemption? We know it's a good Torah virtue, but how does it lead to redemption? So he begins with a passage from the Gemara Gittin and then a parallel passage in the Midbar Rabbah that this quality of quoting the name of one who says it is even reflected in the way God relates to us. From the Agadah and Midrash, even the Holy One, blessed be He, quotes a teaching from the mouth of the person who said it, as it appears in the first chapter of Gittin, where God says, what does God do in Shemayim for significant parts of the day? He learns Torah, and in the Yeshiva Shalmala, the heavenly yeshiva, and God says, "My son Eviatar said, this is what he says," okay, etc. So he quotes a passage from from the Chacham Eviatar, and then from Midbar Rabbah says, when Moshe ascended above to heaven, getting the Torah, he heard the voice of the Holy One, blessed be He, was sitting and engaged in the Torah portion of the Para Duma, the red heifer. And he said, God says, Eliezer, my son, that says thus, that it should be a 2-year-old heifer. It's Eliezer ben Hyrcanus. It should be a 2-year-old heifer. The halachic issue is, It's called a para aduma, the red para. Para is a cow, a female cow. In English, it's often translated as heifer, and that's not a bad thing. A heifer technically is it's not a calf. It's the next stage up, a year-old cow, female, that's not yet a full-grown adult cow. So the issue with the paraduma, with the red heifer, is that, well, it should be a para, meaning a cow, but halachically, we don't want to wait too long with, if you find a cow that looks like a good candidate, a heifer that, a young cow that looks like a good candidate for the paraduma, that all of its hair is this reddish color. You don't want to wait too long lest a hair of another color might appear, black or white or whatever. And so you want to sort of get the cow at the youngest point, at its earliest age, when it's sort of between heifer and cow. So Rabbi Eliezer said that this should be a 2-year-old heifer. The Chachamim, the other rabbis say it should be 3-year-old. That's a dispute in the Mishnah. But here, God is quoting Rabbi Eliezer, should be a 2-year-old heifer. So Moshe hears this and he says, before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the world, the upper and lower worlds are yours. You sit and say the halacha from the mouth of a mortal of fresh flesh and blood. Why do you have to do this, God? The Holy One, blessed be He, said to Moshe, there is a righteous person who will arise in my world in the future, right? Many generations after Moshe, Rabbi Eliezer, who will be the first to open up understanding of the portion of the red heifer, that it should be a 2-year-old heifer. And even if, and this is, the halacha doesn't follow him, it follows the rabbis who say a 3-year-old heifer, but God thinks that this is really important, and to quote it in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, whose idea matches the concept of the Torah that God has in mind. So it's a great midrash itself, and the Maharal then says beautifully here. He says, Hashem arranged all creatures and placed intelligence in each and every one, appropriate to who they are. And therefore, he said the halacha from the mouth of Rabbi Eliezer, as if to say, I created in my world a righteous and wise man with a unique intelligence to grasp the halachot of the red heifer, to comprehend this in clarity, to say it should be a 2-year-old heifer. And it's not a bad idea, catches it early, right? Therefore, the Holy One, blessed be He, says a statement in the name of Rabbi Eliezer, just as He, blessed be He, created all the creatures. And this is important here. God created all creatures and granted each one its nature, so too granted every human being intelligence and knowledge. And when the concept is according to the knowledge of the person who Hashem arranged, in other words, when a human being gets it right as to what the Torah is really saying, God quotes it from His mouth. Very interesting. We'll talk about this further, and we'll have a discussion at the end. I mean, there's much to say. I'll just say just briefly here that what a wonderful theory of sort of the significance of how the world unfolds for God. Of the importance of of every, there's a verse, Emet Me'eretz Titzmach, that truth grows up from the earth, that truth is discovered by us human beings, in our collective culture and as we go through history, and this discovery of truth is important, and God loves this, and this is how God arranged it, that we should each one of us, using our unique talents, our unique insights, whoever we are, whatever we come up with and discover, in this reality God has created, is important, is valuable to us and to God, and deserves to be quoted by name. Okay, it's a wonderful idea, and much to say about this, but I want to sort of get this into play. So first, that principle. It's a really beautiful read of the Midrash by the Maharal. The importance of every single person's contribution to the revelation of truth, to the revelation of Torah. Wonderful. Then the Maharal goes further and notes that Moshe wondered that God would say the halacha in the name of minority opinion. The opinion isn't even like, I mean, the final halachic position isn't like Rabbi Eliezer. It's like the Chachamim, the rabbis who say it should be a 3-year-old cow, heifer. But minority opinions are very important in Torah. This, by the way, should be remembered in the present crisis that Israel is going through at the moment. It's important to have respect for minority opinions. And in any case, the Maharal says every halacha is unique to the person who says it, okay? Whether it's the majority opinion or the minority opinion, it is unique and fitting to attribute every concept in Torah to the person who says the teaching. And if one does not do that, one alters the Torah from what God arranged for each person. So everyone who's engaged in Torah is contributing to the revelation of Torah in this world. It's truly, literally, every one of us who's engaged in Torah is contributing to the revelation of Torah in this world. And whether it's the majority opinion, minority opinions, all of that is the richness of that revelation, and everyone's contribution should be respected. God respects it. So we have this general idea that God appreciates, and therefore we who are we have a mitzvah to come to resemble God in our actions. L'hidamot el Hashem. We too should value the opinion of everyone and quote everyone by name, and even minority opinions. And then he goes on to say another reason why it might be important to quote in the name of the person who says it originally. That if one is not careful about this, one might not be careful about the essence of the teaching and come to alter it. So this is more of a scholarly virtue. This is not about how it's redemptive, but that it's part of being careful, and it is. I mean, those of us who are, all of us who are in learning, it is it's important to be very careful about expressing the halacha properly, and that includes who said it. So now the Maharal wants to wrestle with, okay, scholarly virtue we get, but how does this bring redemption to the world? That's the question. He will also even raise the issue of, this seems like a bit of a associative or causal fallacy. Just because Esther did this and brought redemption doesn't mean every time that somebody says something in the name of somebody else will bring redemption to the world. What was it about Esther quoting in the name of Mordechai that was so redemptive? That's his question here. And God judges everything measure for measure. So where is the measure for measure here that Esther brings in the statement in the name of Mordechai, and this brings the redemption? So very incisive questions by the Maharal. So his first approach to this is to say that, okay, Esther gave over the information in the name of Mordechai, who gave it to her, and that was redemptive. And he takes an interesting angle on this. He says, one should know that when the Holy One, blessed be He, brings redemption, Hashem, blessed be He, wants Israel, wants the world, to know that He, blessed be He, has acted. And people should not say it wasn't Hashem, blessed be He, who did this, but Kochi ve'otzim yadi, that was my power and my wisdom that brought this redemption about. What's going on here? I mean, it's not that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kind of priding himself that, no, I brought the redemption, no, this person did. That's not the issue here. It's important that we understand that God brought this redemption, even though, as you know, famously, God isn't even mentioned by name, certainly not in the Megillah. But God, for instance, by the Yetziat Mitzrayim, says over and over again, I am the one who brought you out of Egypt. He's not saying this to aggrandize himself. God does not need to boast. What God is saying this for is that we should understand that we can rely on God. That when we have challenges and crises, and we really feel that we're in trouble, we can talk to God. We can appeal to God. God cares for us. God is helping us even when we don't even realize it. So that's what this is about, to realize that God is working to bring the redemption of Am Yisrael and really the redemption of humanity at all times. Okay, to know that. So how is it that then Esther's telling it over in the name of Mordechai reinforces this notion that God wants us to know that God is helping us? So he says, interesting, had Esther been the kind of person to say, and he says, interesting with a little psychological insight, what could have happened. Mordechai tells Esther about the plot. Esther, who's a new queen, wants to, ingratiate herself with her husband. She could have just said, I heard about this, I found this out. And the king would be very grateful to her and realize, that he can really trust her and rely on her. And she would have made things easier for herself. But the whole redemption wouldn't have happened. But Esther was not that type of person. Esther was a person who put herself aside. I mean, in fact, this is one of the main themes of the character of Esther in the Megillah, Karka Olam. She is able to efface herself. And here too, in a very important way, she realizes she's not the one who is, who found out about this plot and is able to thwart it. Mordechai did. She wants to give proper credit where credit is due. And in this way, she was fit to bring redemption to the world because in effacing herself by quoting the information in Mordechai, she is also the one who is able to see even behind Mordechai that this is all arranged, and Mordechai himself would admit this is all arranged by God. So this quality of saying over a statement in the name of one who says it is a way of effacing ourselves and further effacing ourselves until we realize that Hashem is really the one who's helping us and bringing everything towards redemption. So it's that's the importance of this quality of quoting in the name of another. It's a form of deep humility. Then the Maharal then wrestles with this interesting way, the associative fallacy or the causal fallacy. He says, well, it shouldn't be a problem that many people say things in the name of a person who said it, and they don't bring redemption. They're just quoting another person, so not bringing any redemption. So it doesn't mean here that a person who quotes in the name of someone who said it will definitely bring redemption. He says it's just if it becomes if it becomes necessary to bring redemption to the world, he'll be able to bring it by saying the statement in the name of the person who said it. He merits to bring it. Okay, and then he goes and expands this a bit further. And even so, this is not difficult. For truly, at each and every moment, Israel needs redemption. We're always needing redemption. The world is needing redemption. We're in a crisis right now here in Israel. We're always needing redemption. And it's a crisis very related to this. People need to listen to each other and respect each other. It's not happening yet. God willing, it will. So at every moment we need redemption. And the Holy One, blessed be He, brings it through the person who says a statement in the name of the person who said it and puts himself or herself aside. Okay. Thus far, it's we can see the ethical dimension of quoting in the name of someone who said it and the importance of that. And it's essentially the idea that this person is able to clear the way to understand that behind this all, it's Hashem who is the one who is really speaking our redemption. But the Maharal wants to go a little deeper here now. And he says, and you should know in addition, there's a very wondrous reason why someone who says a statement in the name of the person who said it brings redemption to the world. So catch this, a very interesting approach. He says, how does he do this? By returning the things that are in the hand of another to the one to whom the things belong. And the things leave the domain of the other, those things that were under the other's control, and return to the one to whom they belong. In other words, in saying a statement in the name of the person who originally said it, you are bringing that that statement and that truth back to its proper place, to the person who said it, to the one to whom, who brought the statement out in the first place, to whom it belongs. So we're bringing things back to their proper original place. And he says, therefore, by his agency, there also occurs the redemption of Israel. For Israel was under the control of others, and this alienation, kind of the exile of Israel, parallel to the exile of a statement that's not quoted in the name of the one who really said it. Israel was under the control of others, and by his hand, it's fitting that Israel return to him to whom they belong, the person who quotes in the name of the person who said it. And Israel belongs to the Holy One, blessed be he, certainly. What's going on here? So this is, a hint here of a Kabbalistic principle. I mean, the Maharal was, fully adept in Kabbalah, but he kept it kind of, he kept it light and kind of hid it within a more philosophical context. And here, this is basically a theurgic principle. In other words, when we on our level, and it's kind of like a sort of sympathetic theurgy, when we on our level do an action that in this case brings something back to its original place where it belongs, brings a statement back to its original owner, we create a dynamic in the world in which the things that have been alienated or exiled from their place are brought back to their original place. Okay, this is a Kabbalistic notion. It's called iteruta dilatata, arousal from below. It's the fancy word, in theology is theurgy. We are urging the divine realm, in a certain sense, by our action. It sounds, in a certain sense, as if it's magical, but it's not. I mean, it's deeper than that. One of the ways of thinking about it is in terms of kind of spiritual chaos theory. Little fluttering of wings of butterfly in the Amazon creates storms in New England or in Israel. That we set up dynamic, principles, even with small actions of integrity, like quoting the name of the person who said it. A small action of integrity can create honesty and integrity and bringing things back to their proper place throughout the world. Okay, we could get that on if we acknowledge the principle of kind of spiritual chaos theory. But this is also it operates on a deeply rational level, I think, as well. He's going to explain this, I think, in a more precise way in the next in 2 paragraphs. So I'm going to hold it for that for a moment. He does insert here, if the person doesn't bring a complete redemption with quoting in the name of the person who said it, at least he brings a relief. For every relief from the nations and the hands of rulers, it's all a redemption. Nicely said. Okay. But now here he sums this up, and I think he sums it up very eloquently. He says, and if we put together what we said above, the Maharal says, greatness of the matter we mentioned above, Hashem, blessed be he, arranged for each and every person their unique knowledge and wisdom, okay, and their unique ability to contribute to the improvement of the tikkun of the world. When things leave the domain of the other, that they don't belong in, to the domain of the one who said them, this is an exceedingly supernal redemption. Therefore, one who says something in the name of the person who said it brings redemption, and one should understand this very well. So he puts these 2 principles together, that each and every person, each one of us has our unique knowledge and wisdom, and when that is acknowledged, and each person's contribution is acknowledged in their name, this is an exceedingly high level of redemption. Why is that? Well, really, geula, redemption. We speak of it in terms of the Messianic era. What is this ultimate redemption that is, part of our greatest hope in Torah? The ultimate redemption, as the Maharal is describing it quite beautifully, is that when every single person in the world is who they are, just who you are. Every one of us is contributing to this world with just the unique ways that each and every one of us can contribute. And some of us, it might be in certain intellectual things, and some of it in artistic things, and some of it, in certain moral actions that we do, and in the work that we do, or how we relate to other people. I mean, every one of us, it's not even just in those principles. Every single one of us has unique contributions to make to this world. And when each person is who they are and acknowledged to be who they are, and all of us together are doing this, that is the redemption. When we're not alienated from ourselves by being misled or misdirected by others, when we acknowledge each one of us the gift of who we are, when we respect the gift of every other person, and what they contribute to the world, and we realize that we're all in this together, in this world, to fix this world together. That doesn't lead to the redemption. It is the redemption. And our Maharal says, understand this very well. We see this in other aspects of the Megillah as well. In Esther, when she's about to go to the king, she knows she's taking her life in her hands. When she does that, she asks everyone to pray. That's a very important moment. She gets everybody, to fast, to pray. She gets everybody's involvement in this, in what will be the ultimate redemption. And that's really important, because at the end, everyone's going to have to either fight or intimidate their enemies, so that to help to further the salvation of of not just of the Jewish people, but of Persia itself. That contribution, to realize that we're all in this together, and respecting each other's contributions and being who we are, that's, as the Maharal says, that's a very high level of redemption. It's the redemption itself. Redemption, is not, sometimes it's portrayed as if God will do everything for us and it infantilizes humanity. It's not the case. The whole point of the Geula, of redemption, is the empowerment of each and every one of us to contribute our best efforts as who we are to the fixing of this world, to tikkun, and to respect the best efforts of each other. We need this in this world today. It really is one of the most essential principles of redemption. And this is also expressed, very nicely also in Avot, Mishnah Avot, the 4th chapter. The two very beautiful statements, and that I think are very characteristic of Anne's father, my father-in-law. That Benzoma says, "Who is wise? One who learns from every person. As it says, from all my teachers I have gained intelligence." Sometimes wisdom is thought of, a wise person is someone who has a lot of wisdom, contains a lot of wisdom. No, a wise person, says Benzoma, is someone who is learning, who is always open to learning new things, and appreciates that he's learning from everyone, engaging every other person. And Ben Azai then says, sort of the companion point to this, he says, do not disparage any person and do not disregard anything, for every person has his moment and everything has its place. And this too, this is that principle of, to quote in the name of the person who said it, to respect the contributions of every other person and everyone we've learned with, everyone who has things to contribute into the world, that really is the very essence of Geula, of redemption. Anne's father, my father-in-law, Paul Venze, Pesach ben David Cohen Vechenka, Zichrono Livracha, he was this kind of person. He used to engage with everyone he met, wherever he went. He loved going up to strangers and just start talking and finding out who they are, and showing his interest in them, and sincere interest. I mean, it was completely sincere. Loved that kind of chatting. And this included workers of all kinds, waiters, laborers, busboys, cooks, doormen, post office workers, garbage men, anybody in the street. No class distinctions, no economic distinctions, no age distinctions. In one of the things he did so profoundly. I mean, he would visit every week. He would visit the elderly and shut-ins in the larger community. His you know, his Bikur Cholim, Haknasat Orchim. I mean, and his reaching out to people who were lonely, and showing his profoundly sincere interest in them, and for those who were ill and going to the hospitals. You know, was extraordinary in this, and this is his virtue, and this is this virtue of respecting everyone for who they are, everyone's unique contributions, and celebrating that and helping people feel good about to be who they are. And he was a person who very much, you know, you know was who he is. I have to say, I imagine him now kind of in Shamayim, running around and schmoozing and, getting to know the Malachim and getting to know the Neshamot and, getting to know, and showing his continuing deep interest in everything. And we wanted to dedicate this shir to his memory. Zichrono Lebracha, Li'aliyat Nishmat Pesach and David Cohen Bechenka, who we love so deeply and miss so deeply on this his first yahrzeit. So okay,